Hey guys, welcome back to Let's Be Honest podcast. Today I have Tara. She is a gay woman who lived in the Bahamas with her family and survived a Category 5 hurricane. Not only did she survive it, she also kept her partner, 6-year-old child at the time, and 5 dogs safe. They swam for their lives, hid in the pitch dark. Watched their house slowly fill up with ocean water and eventually realized there was no way out but to just wait. I bet that was so scary.
Terrifying doesn't begin.
Yes. So your story is insane. I'm honored that you wanted to come on this podcast and tell your story. So let's just dive in. So everyone welcome Tara. So you and your partner, your 6-year-old at the time, and your 5 dogs survived Hurricane Dorian. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Category 5. So what are this wasn't a question, but now I'm thinking, what are the differences? Is Category 5 like the absolute worst one that you can have?
Yeah, so it's 1 through 5. There's nothing higher than 5. 5 is the worst that they have. The National Hurricane Center rates hurricanes based on wind speed. And you go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There have only been a handful of Category 5 hurricanes recorded in history in the last 100 years. Most of them have been in the last 20 years.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Okay, so I want us to just dive into your story. So you were born and raised in the Bahamas, and hurricanes were kind of y'all's way of life. You didn't really think anything of it whenever you heard that there was a hurricane coming. You did your normal preparations, but it obviously was not enough. So my first question is, what kind of like preparations is common for hurricanes?
Yeah, so as you said, born and raised, parents were born and raised, grandparents were born and raised. Our family goes back 8, 9 generations. So hurricanes are something that we've been dealing with long before we had the Weather Channel and the National Hurricane Service to tell us that there was a storm coming. And 2019, when Hurricane Dorian hit, we had the benefit of Facebook and computers and TV and radio and all the things and all of the meteorological equipment that tests these things and tells you where they might go, what they might do, how big they might be. So at that point, we were used to storms. Every few years, we'd have a storm, might be Category 1, might be a 2. 3 years before Hurricane Dorian, we had a Category 3, almost Category 4, so a pretty bad storm. We just get ready. You stock up on your food, you fill your car with gas, you shutter your house. If you have a newer house, you have windows that are considered hurricane proof, which means that they can stand up to a direct hit by a piece of 2x4 lumber going at 150-mile-an-hour winds.
That's no joke. That's crazy.
No, that's no joke. These are the things that we do. We build our houses far above codes for building, like in places like Florida, who are also used to having hurricanes. So our codes in the Bahamas for structural engineering, much above that. So you pack up your patio furniture and you put away your barbecue grill and you make sure that there's nothing in your yard that can fly around and break things. And you sit tight and you get ready.
That's so scary. So, do you have to put anything in front of like your doors or like anything like that? Or is your house pretty much like hurricane proof and you're just like, okay, we're just gonna hope for the best?
So house is as hurricane proof as we can possibly make it. I mentioned the windows because in 2019 we happened to be in a fairly new house. Our house was only a few years old. We had been blessed enough to be able to install these relatively new hurricane proof windows and doors. Prior to that, getting ready for a storm would have meant putting up shutters, putting up plywood, wood on your windows, covering your windows so that they couldn't get broken by something flying around in a storm. This storm, because of having these windows, meant that we had one less thing to do. We didn't have to shutter. We didn't have to nail up wood. But yeah, doors are all, special locks to keep them closed and all of those things. The other thing that we did at our house, the island that we were living on, Grand Bahama, and the northernmost island of the Bahamas, only about 80 miles from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The island's very flat. Most of the Bahamas is very flat. We don't have elevation. And so flooding from storm surge, is relatively common. the area that we had our house in, we knew that they had had 6 inches, a foot of water on the street previously. So we spoke to the engineers and the contractors and the people that have all of this information and said, okay, what should we do to make this safer? Let's build the house up. So we built a higher than normal foundation. We were 4 feet off of ground level, but we did have the ocean in our backyard. So we were on a saltwater canal. So there was ocean right there.
Mm-hmm.
The beauty of living in the Bahamas, you can live on the ocean.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's an amazing thing to do, except when there is a hurricane coming. So all in all, we had our living space of our house, single-story house, about 10 feet above high tide. If we had had a foot of water on the street before, 10 feet is like extreme. We're good. No problems. No water coming into our house. So we were ready.
Yeah. You were, yeah. I bet you guys were. I bet you were like, there's no way. Like, this will be fine.
We're safe.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's crazy. Yeah, I was about to say that's like the beauty of living in the Bahamas is being right there by the ocean, but then the negative is that there's hurricanes, you know? I bet it was beautiful living in the Bahamas though. I bet it was amazing.
It really was. I mean, idyllic and paradise and on all of those things. I mean, if you look up tropical in Webster's dictionary, it's just the Bahamas.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay, so 4 a.m. comes and you guys realize like this is not a normal hurricane. Like this isn't the hurricanes that y'all usually see. So start from there. So you wake up at 4 a.m. and take it away.
So we knew that the storm was coming. We knew that it was going to be bad. We knew that it was a Category 5 hurricane. Like we knew all of this stuff. This wasn't surprising. We knew that it was going to have 185 mile per hour wind. So for anyone that's not familiar with hurricanes, but is familiar with maybe tornadoes, that's an EF3 tornado.
Yeah.
So this is a lot of wind. We knew it was coming. We're ready. Go to bed, get up, check the weather, go to bed, you know, like not really sleeping the night that it's arriving.
Yeah.
At 4 a.m., we got up and checked, and the water was at our doors. So 10 feet of ocean at 4 a.m. The storm's only just started.
Oh my God. I bet that was so scary.
It wasn't scary at that point.
Yeah.
Because at that point, it was, oh, well, this is going to be annoying.
Yeah.
We're going to slosh around inside our house for a few hours and, you know, ankle high water, and we're going to have to rip out drywall and replace things and insurance. And, oh, this is going to be just frustrating and annoying.
Yeah. You didn't think it was gonna.
I didn't think it was going to get as bad as it did. And then the water rose and it kept rising. And an hour went by and we went from, you know, toe height to calf height. And then it went from calf height to knee height. And then it's like, why is it not? It's not stopping. It's getting higher. What are we supposed to do? And we're rushing around chaos like, oh, we should, you know, pack some kind of a emergency bag. I don't know where we're going to go, but like, that's what you do when you're in distress. You pack an emergency bag. We'd never done that before. We'd never had a reason to. We're securing valuables in like high shelves, getting photo albums off the floor, putting them into the highest shelves to save things. And just water kept rising, right? We have our little legged dogs swimming in the house. Oh, let's put those on the couch. Eventually the couch starts to float. And the dining room table starts to float. And we're sitting on our kitchen countertops to try and stay dry. Our 6-year-old, very good swimmer, but our house is filling up with water like a fishbowl.
Yeah, and it's ocean water. Did you guys see any, like, this might be stupid, but did you guys see any like fish or anything weird where you were like, holy shit, this is the ocean water?
No, we never saw fish. They're in hindsight after the fact, because at the time, fish and sharks, not really the biggest thing on our minds as far as danger.
Yeah.
But yeah, after the fact, it's like, what if there were sharks in that water? Like,
yeah,
were we at risk for having a shark attack in the middle of the hurricane? I don't know.
Oh my God. No, I know it could have. Yeah, I mean, because it's like, it's obviously probably super unrealistic, but you see those movies, you know, and
Yes.
It's like the sharks, and it's like, but of course they put that into a movie because it's like, why wouldn't they, you know? But of course.
So to be fair, there was a rumor in the aftermath, have no clue if it's true, that they found a shark stranded on the airport runway. Like after the water receded, there was a shark left on the runway.
Oh I mean, I believe it.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I feel like it totally could be possible. I mean,
totally could be possible.
totally. Okay, so y'all are scrambling. Your little dogs are swimming around. You have to put them on something that's obviously above water so they can
Mhm.
survive. Um, y'all are chilling on the kitchen counter. What is y'all's next move?
So we started having conversations of we need help. This is past our ability to handle, function. The fear of the water getting even higher is great. We're looking out of our windows and we're looking at our neighbor's house they have 2 stories, right? They have a second story. Oh, maybe we can swim. Maybe we can swim to their house and then we'll be safe in their second story. It's 185-mile-an-hour wind. And at that point, we're looking at 12 feet of height. So there's no walking, we have to swim. We decided very quickly that that was more dangerous than staying put. We put out a formal SOS. We need help. We know no one can come. There's no rescue in 185-mile-an-hour winds. No one is going to come until the storm is gone. So we know we're stuck. We know there's no way to get away. No one's going to help us. We have to figure out how to keep our heads above water. And so we're scrambling around the house looking for things that float. And we've got pool floats. Okay, stick a pool float around our 6-year-old. We've got a cot mattress that has a waterproof, mattress cover on it.
Yeah.
And that's floating.
Yeah.
So we've got like a semi-buoyant raft.
Mm.
Okay, we've got stuff. We've got electrical cords for ropes. We need to tie together so we can't get separated. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
You can't.
You couldn't put this on a movie and have it be believable, but it really happened.
It's insane. I remember when you were telling me this part, you said that, yeah, y'all tried to go outside and you realized this probably is not the best option. And you said you went under a couple times. Was it due to like the water being crazy, the wind, you trying to keep people afloat? Like, where are your dogs chilling on the mattress? Like, what's
So like all of the above.
okay.
All of the above. So yeah, we did try to go outside. We swam out through a window because at that point the water was that high. We had to swim out of the window, couldn't open any of the doors. And went outside thinking it was better outside because we wouldn't end up with our face pressed against the ceiling, like not being able to breathe. If we got outside, there was no ceiling. But staying together, again, semi-buoyant mattress. So not raft. You put weight on it, it starts to sink.
Mm-hmm.
So child, 5 dogs, semi-buoyant mattress. My wife and I are swimming next to this mattress. Dogs are freaking out. Child's freaking out. We're freaking out. We're trying to pretend like we're not because we're trying to be parents. We're parenting through this. We're going to die, but we need to parent. And, dogs climbing on my shoulders. And I go under, hold my breath the first time, come back up, get the dogs back on the mattress. A couple minutes later, same thing happens again. Go under. This time, I don't come back up. My wife has to grab the back of my jacket and like haul me up. Water's not that deep at this point, right? We're at like maybe 7 feet, so I can't stand, but if I sink, I can push my feet on the bottom, but it doesn't need to be really deep to drown.
Yeah, and no telling what's in that water, like object-wise, like pieces of houses,
Yes.
walls, like tires, like things.
Yes.
Yeah, that's scary. You could get caught on something. Like, it doesn't have to be deep. I totally get that. Oh my gosh, my anxiety right now. Just thinking about it.
Okay, listen, my anxiety, I've told this story so many times I've lost track.
I know.
This is not how I usually look. This is when I tell this story. This is anxiety.
Is it anxiety because you're thinking about, like, you're retelling the story, or?
I'm retelling the story. I'm feeling the emotions. I'm going through the I almost died and the fear and the desperation. And despite having lots of therapy, and I know we'll talk about that a little bit later, the scars will always be there.
100%. I can only imagine. Okay, so makeshift raft was not the thing. Y'all decide to go back in. What happens then?
By the time we go back in, the window that we had kind of made our way out of was underwater.
Oh my God.
So we have to dive
Oh my
back
God.
into the house with the 5 dogs, with the 6-year-old kid. Again, thank God our kid could swim, like really well at 6. At 6, our daughter could dive 12 feet, like down. She
Period.
was a really good swimmer. So we had to dive back into the house, and then back in the house was calmer and quiet, and we were sheltered from the wind. But at the same time, water's still rising. Still rising. We're losing space. We got to do something.
Can I ask you a question real quick? Whenever
Yeah.
y'all are diving, um, under the window, you said your daughter, obviously, she's a little fishy. She's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Your dogs, are they like on leashes and you're just kind of like, let's go, and you're dragging them, or are you like you know what I mean? Like, how did you get them underneath?
So no leashes. They've all got collars.
Okay.
So, but they're all terrified. So they're all staying real close together. No one's trying to run away. There's nowhere to run to.
Yeah.
And it's literally grab a dog, shove it under the water. Grab the next dog, shove it under the water. Our largest dog, we had a husky mutt mix. And she was our challenge because shoving a 50-pound dog and expecting making them do anything is like not easy.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I bet. That's crazy. Props to you for I don't know, taking the dogs. I don't know, because I mean, I've heard stories, I've seen things where sometimes you got to leave the animals, and it's sad, you know. Sometimes
and
you have to.
To be fair, there was a point where I said to my wife, "Leave them.
Yeah.
We're dying. We can't save everybody. Leave them." She refused. Flat out refused. No, I'm not leaving them. They're coming with us. Okay, let's do that.
You're like, whatever you want, baby. And you're like, oh.
It's one of the things I can't really argue about right now.
Yeah, you're like, okay, we'll save them. We'll save them.
Let's do it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Whenever I was reading your email that you sent me, I was like, 5 dogs. Like a 6-year-old child. That's crazy to begin with.
Yeah.
But 5 dogs in addition to that.
Yeah.
It's insane.
So, like, of course, even at 6, kids can follow instruction. You're leading by example. It's going to be okay. Let's do this. You be strong. You know, all dogs have I'm dying. It's fear. Why am I going to listen to you? It's fear, right? Instinct kicks in. So there's a lot of manhandling the dogs through all of this.
100. Oh yeah, I bet. Ugh. Okay, so you're back inside. Y'all are diving, and you realize that the water is pretty high. Yeah. How high is it at this point?
At that point, we had about 3 feet between the water level and the ceiling.
Right. So y'all are swimming.
So we're swimming. At one point, we were able to grab dining room chairs that had floated from our dining room on the opposite side of the house to our master bedroom, which is where we were at that point. And so my wife and I were able to like force a chair under the water so that we could stand on it. And if you balance just right, you could stop swimming. Our bed was floating. So all the dogs and the child up on the bed. So they're stable. They're not swimming. But the bed is like wedged against the ceiling.
Yeah, there's not much space.
There's no space. The bed is wedged. It's not going anywhere, but the water keeps rising. So at that point, we're like, last resort, we have to go into our attic. Our attic has no escape. There's no dormer windows. There's no tool or chainsaw to like cut a hole in the roof. Once you go up there and the water reaches, that's it. There's no escaping the water. But at that point, we had no other choice. There was nowhere to go, and the water was not slowing down.
Oh my God.
We were, again, miracles, lots and lots and lots of miracles through this whole thing. When we had built the house, we had put in like this fold down ladder that could get you into the attic, and we had that open already. So we had a way to get into the attic. So we get the dogs into the attic, we get ourselves into the attic, our little bag of emergency things into the attic. The last dog that I took into the attic, I had to dive under the door frame. So the door frame's underwater now. I have to dive under the door frame with the dog to get into the room that has the ladder to get into the attic.
So that dog was not able to stay afloat. He was drowning.
Yeah. We have to get, this is it. Yeah.
That's crazy. Okay, so yeah, y'all are up in the attic. There's no way out. Like you said, the only door that there is the one where you have to
Underwater.
go, yeah, you have to go through the
It's
house.
now it's now underwater.
Yeah. And opening that door with the water being all the way,
You
like
can't.
there's no way. Yeah, okay.
No,
I
you
was
can't.
like, if I'm thinking correctly, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So y'all are in there, everyone, the animals, sorry, my computer just made a weird noise. Your animals, you, your partner, and your baby. Y'all are just in there. What are y'all's like next steps? Like is was like last resort. So you're just like, we're just gonna sit in here and hope that the water goes down.
And that's it. That's it. Once we got to the attic, that was really when the shock had set in. So we were full out adrenaline, fight or flight for a solid 6 hours, 6, 7 hours. Almost no food, very little water. So once we got to the attic and we were above the water, shock set in. So ice cold, like we're saturated, we're cold.
Mm.
We were lucky enough to have like a Rubbermaid bin that had like a bunch of winter clothes in it, because when you live on the beach, you go to the snow for vacation. So we had winter clothes all packed up in this little plastic bin, and we were able to get that. We were able to change out of our wet clothes and get dry. So that was real helpful with the shock. But again, very little water, very little food. Packing food when you think you're going to die, you don't pack the things that you really should. I will probably never eat peanut butter again as long as I live. And I mean that in the most sincere way I possibly can. I will never eat peanut butter again.
I
And
respect that.
it's really dark. Like there's no light. The very tiny bit of light that's filtering from below us through the little ladder area and around the outside of the house.
Yeah.
And it's really loud. Like you can hear the 185 mile an hour plus gusts. Trees are hitting the roof, and the roof is creaking, and you can feel the roof moving. And we're just like, what are we gonna do if the roof pulls? If the roof pulls off, we're all gonna die. There's what are we gonna do? There's no other plan B. We just have to sit here.
Yeah, like if the roof flies off, if a tree crashes in, like, yeah, oh my gosh. That's crazy. Okay, so how long were you guys in the attic for?
We were in the attic for 24 hours.
Oh my God. And like you barely had any food.
Barely had any food. Only had a small amount of water. Uh, Bathrooms were non-existent, so that was a whole
Oh yeah.
other thing.
Yep.
And but we would just like sit and stare at the entrance that we came into the attic, right at the ladder, and we would watch like one of the ladder steps that we had used to get up disappeared, and then another one disappeared. We're like waiting for the water to come. The water stopped. So the water never made it into the attic. And at that point, I said, okay, no water. Now all we need to worry about is a tornado coming and tearing off the roof. That's all we need to worry about now.
Oh my gosh.
But for 24 hours, you listen to the storm. Again, super loud. We're leaning against, the wooden bracings, the rafters of the roof, and you can feel it moving. You can feel the roof moving. And we had like old plastic bins to sit on. Like it's an attic. It's not like your attic space that you finished because you want to have a media room or something. No, it's just like purely utility. There's no place to sit or get comfortable. And just kept repeating over and over, please let the roof hold, please let the roof hold, please let the roof hold. Like for 24 hours straight, that's the only thing I had in my head. There was no what had happened. There was no what's going to happen. There's no what tomorrow will look like. It's just, please let the roof hold.
Yeah. Yeah, because you guys that's the attic is the only thing that's keeping you safe. And the roof is also the only thing that's keeping you safe. So if this thing flies away, there's nothing you can do besides possibly finding something to float on in the water. Like, but the chances of that, being something that would actually work is very low. Okay. So water does not come in the attic. So when do you guys start to decide, like, okay, let's try to open the attic door and like see where it's at, where the water's at?
So we never, the attic door was never closed.
Oh, gotcha,
The
gotcha.
ladder was there. We were never able to close it because of the water.
Oh, okay.
So the entire time we're there, we can watch the water level.
Oh God.
Nighttime, the tiny bit of light we had disappeared. So like I'm doing this and I can't see my hand.
Oh my
Like
God.
at all. By the next morning, when the sun started to let a little bit of light in, far later than usual because we're still in the middle of a hurricane, we could hear a little bit of a decrease in the amount of sound, which was like, okay, that's good.
Yeah.
It's a little quieter. That's good. And we could see the water. And very slowly, the last ladder step that had disappeared reappeared.
Oh my God.
And that was the point that, okay, we survived.
My goodness. How long until you guys are like, okay, we're going to go back into the house? We're going to do this. We're going to try to figure out what to do next.
6 hours. 6 hours it took the water to recede from ceiling height to ankle height.
That's insane.
Yeah. With a 6-year-old who's totally done with his entire process. With dogs who are totally done with this entire process. Everybody wants out of the attic. We can't.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. So 6 hours. You guys wait 6 hours. You guys then make your way down into the house. What did you see in the house? Like what? Yeah. Like what was the visuals?
Okay. So the visual is, you see all of the destruction in places like Syria and Ukraine and Gaza on the television right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it looked like. It looked like a bomb had gone off inside our house. Drywall was peeled off of walls. Everything was cracked and broken in giant piles. Our living room couch was sitting on our kitchen island.
Oh my God. That is
Exactly.
insane. That's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Some of the windows and doors that we could not possibly have opened during the storm, all open.
Mm-hmm.
Not broken, open.
Yeah, you're like, how does that work?
How does that happen?
Oh my God, it's the sharks. No, I'm just kidding.
They learned how to open hurricane-proof doors and windows. The best we could assume is that the pressure and the waves and the house was open.
Yeah, that's crazy.
We were very lucky. Again, more miracles. Within 30 minutes of coming down out of the attic, we looked up and there was a guy in a wetsuit and a mask standing on our back porch. Our whole yard is still full of water. Yeah. We're still like an island by ourselves. But there's a guy standing on our back porch.
And he obviously showed up in a boat, I'm assuming.
He showed up in a boat. We were some of the very first people that they came looking for because no one had heard from us in 24 hours and we had a young child. This was grassroots rescue. This was not official, agency governmental rescue. This was friends that we knew working with, like the rescue people, and they were just out in their boat trying to get people. We were the first stop.
Oh my goodness. Well, I don't know how this works, but was like the people that are supposed to rescue, like the government, I feel like they should have this figured out. Why were these people the first ones to come and help you and not like the government people trying to help you? Do you get what I'm saying? I probably worded that terribly.
No, you didn't. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
When disaster strikes, you expect the people who take care of disaster to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
So this has never happened before. We've never had ocean storm surge like this.
Okay.
Ever. Like rescue and hurricane aftermath is different entirely. It's not water rescues. It's okay, you need a place to stay, here's the shelter. Right?
Yeah.
It's not we need to get people out because they might be drowning, as we're told. This hasn't ever happened. Also, we're still in the middle of a hurricane.
Yeah.
These guys are out in this boat and it's blowing 90 miles an hour. They are risking their lives to be out here. Official rescue is not going to start until they're convinced that they can keep people safe to rescue people. So that's why these guys decided they could handle it. They were willing to do it. They want to rescue people. They started.
Well, that's amazing. That's a thing. That there's a was it like a is it like a little company, or was it just like a group of people that were like, we're gonna try to rescue people?
So the Bahamas has something called the Bahamas Air and Sea Rescue Association. So it's BASRA. And
Okay.
that's exactly what they do. If someone has a boating accident, they send out, the people and the equipment and everything to go rescue them.
Mm-hmm.
So these guys were part of their volunteer corps.
Okay.
But at that point, again, not organized yet. It's just, we have a boat, we have some training, we're going to go get people.
Oh my God, I bet that was so scary for them as well. Like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness. Okay, so a dude is at your back, is on your doorstep, and they're in a boat. I remember you telling me the boat was like super tiny. I mean, it's probably all they had, but super tiny. Getting your kid, your dogs, all that into it was really difficult. Can you tell us, like, I don't know, like the process of that? How did you get your kid in there? How did you get your dogs? Because the wind is still 90 miles an hour. I'm sure the water is still rocky. Like, how did you do
Yeah.
that?
All of the things.
Yeah.
So at that point, we were the guy that swam in from the boat. He swam back to the boat a couple of times with dogs.
Okay.
Right? So he'd lead the dog or hold the dog and swim the dog to the boat. After most of the dogs were in the boat, came back for us. At that point, we were chin high water. So we could walk in the water, but don't lose your footing because the current's going to take you. And
Yeah.
I've got my daughter wrapped around me. My wife's got a dog under each arm. The rescue's got a dog under an arm, and we're wading our way out to the boat. The boat starts to have problems. The bilge pump that's supposed to pump all of the water out isn't functioning properly. There's lots of waves. There's more water coming in. If we turn the boat the wrong way, it's going to sink.
Oh my God.
Very, very, very dangerous rescue. How none of us got hurt getting into the boat, like bruised, yes, broken, cut, no, somehow. Got us to their staging area. It was not a shelter. Most of the shelters on the island were not in that area, and none of those shelters would accept dogs. So we were like, okay, we're here. Now what? We have nowhere to go.
Oh my God. Why wouldn't they accept dogs? Like, what's the big
It's,
deal?
the mentality in the Bahamas for pets and dogs is different than other places in the world. For us, our dogs are our children.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is why we risked our lives to save them. Other places in the world, dogs are just dogs, So
No, yeah. I get
yeah.
what you're saying. I went to Turks and Caicos, and then I went to Puerto Rico, and I understand what you're saying. Like, the mentality is very different.
Mm-hmm.
There's dogs running around with little puppies, and they
Mm-hmm.
look all rough, and their skin is all, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I understand. Whenever I went to Turks and Caicos, I was like, I want to save every single one of these animals. Like,
It's heartbreaking. It really is.
it really is. And the island's beautiful, but then you see like a puppy that is like malnourished, and I'm like, and of course I give them like my whole lunch. I'm like, eat it.
Of course. I can't tell you the number of strays I ever picked up and took to the shelter to you guys just like save it.
Yeah.
Make it better.
Just do something. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So that makes sense. Okay. So no dogs allowed. So now you guys are like, okay, so what the heck? Where do I go? So then where do you go?
Random acquaintances, people we had said hi to in the school drop-off line. We have a place you guys can stay. Come stay with us with the dogs. Okay, sounds good.
Oh my gosh. Your story is insane.
It is. I'm telling you, right back to what I said at the beginning. If Hollywood put this on and said, here's this fictional story about these people that survived this hurricane, everyone would go, that's not real. Like that's not even believable. That couldn't have happened. Why didn't they do this or that? Or this happened. Like every bit of it happened. And in the 30 minutes that we've been talking, it barely scratches the surface on the things that we did, that we had to do, the decisions we made, the little quirky things that somehow saved our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And having to make the decisions When you are in such a serious situation, I bet that was so hard. Like I can't even imagine making decisions in a life-threatening situation. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's very tunnel vision. It's very tunnel vision, and it's very fear-induced
Mhm.
decisions. I had to go through a lot of therapy
Mhm.
to be able to relieve myself of the guilt of the bad decisions that were made.
Well, I I'm happy that you've gone to therapy because there's people that don't and
Yeah.
they struggle with it forever, which I'm sure it's still going to be a struggle with you forever, because it's a
Hmm.
traumatic experience, but we will get into that in a second. Um let's see. So you decide to stay with these people. That's so crazy that it was just someone from what, your daughter's school, is that what you said? Just like a
Just random acquaintance.
It's crazy. Okay, so they let you stay. My brain is thinking like, okay, so whenever y'all are at this place where they don't allow you to be, are the streets and things like normal? Like, are you guys able to like walk around, or is it still like ocean out on the streets?
So at the point that we arrived at the staging area from the rescue boat, lots of the streets are still underwater.
Okay.
Like I said, we're still blowing like a Category 1
Yeah.
hurricane. Really shouldn't be out driving in it.
Yeah.
Um, so when we left the staging area with these acquaintances to go to their house, there was a lot of maneuvering.
Okay.
Like, no, try this street. No, go around this puddle. That puddle's too deep. Don't go in that.
Yeah.
Um, Eventually, the storm left. And so eventually all of the water receded and the wind started to die down. And then you're just left with the mess.
My gosh. Okay, so that's crazy. So you got to their house and it was safe. You
Yeah.
felt like, was that when you were like, okay, I can literally breathe. Or are you still like, no, I can't breathe yet?
You know what? Breathing took months.
Yeah.
It was months before there was, I can breathe now.
Okay.
We went from, survival mode to we're safe. We have food, we have water, we have a bed to sleep in. Um, people are bringing us clothing. We have no clothes. Uh, Toys for our daughter to play with, like all of the things. Um, and so our immediate safety and survival stuff was like, okay, we can breathe there,
Mm-hmm.
but almost immediately was what's next.
Yeah.
Now, what do we do now?
Yeah. I know whenever I asked you, were you able to breathe? I'm like, Kinley, like their house was destroyed. Like, hello, why would she be able to breathe? But that was the first question that came to my mind. It was probably stupid. So sorry. um, okay, so yeah, so then what is next? You guys are like, well, okay, so what's next? So then what is next? What happens?
What's next was the next day we were able to go back to the house, and like really kind of see how bad everything was. 90% of our possessions were either literally washed away and we never saw them again, or broken, or um, you know, no longer viable because of ocean saltwater like kills everything, everything. Um, and so we were able to make a trip back. That kind of cemented the loss, and then the grief started. You go from fight or flight, I'm going to die, to just grief at everything that's lost, everything that's happened.
Yeah.
We were also lucky, again, more miracles, in that we were some of the first people that were able to evacuate the island. So 48 hours after rescue, we were able to get on a small plane and we left. We went to Florida.
Okay, so you're at Florida, and I remember you telling me about how you guys land in Florida, but they're like, you guys don't have the correct passports or something like that to stay in Florida. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, so we're Bahamian citizens. We have Bahamian passports. The Bahamas is a Commonwealth country. It is a separate country from the United States. And we did not have immigration pathways to live in the United States permanently.
Okay.
So going to the United States was a temporary, it was always going to be a temporary thing. We explored options for legal immigration. What do we need to do to legally live here? There were none. So we had zero intention of ever staying illegally. We could have just chosen to, we're just going to stay here.
Yeah.
Lots of people do it.
Yeah.
Lots of people who have far worse situations than ours they're better off living illegally in the United States. It was not something we were ever willing to do.
Yeah.
We were also in a horrible trauma PTSD haze in the immediate week and weeks following all of this in Florida. And so we can't stay here. We couldn't face going back to the Bahamas in the aftermath, war zone, looting, issues with getting potable water. Where are we going to live? We've got 5 dogs. No one's going to let us stay permanently with 5 dogs. What are we going to do? So we literally threw ourselves into an international move with 3 weeks of planning. We decided we're going to move to Canada.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So there's so many questions. I'm like, wait, I want to ask her this one. I want to ask her this one. Okay. So 3 weeks. So y'all planned it within 3 weeks or okay.
We made the decision that we're going to move to Canada. We left Florida 3 weeks later.
Oh my goodness. So were y'all like and this, sorry, let me know if this is like totally wrong. Were y'all like house searching? Were you like, okay, we can get this house?
Yes.
Okay.
Like all of the things, right?
Yeah.
Like the Google Earth searches and what does this town look like? And how many people live in that town? And how do can we legally immigrate to Canada? What does that look like? We need an immigration lawyer, call the immigration lawyer, talk to them for like hours and hours and hours and like do all the things. My wife's house hunting. We're looking for schools for our kid. Like,
gosh.
How do we import our dogs into Canada? What does that entail? What paperwork do we need for that?
Oh my gosh.
All of the things.
Oh my gosh. So would you say the process was pretty simple or would you say it was still pretty difficult?
Oh my God, I do not recommend planning an international move in 3 weeks of planning while having PTSD to anyone. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
I feel like 3 weeks but your situation's obviously different. Like you had to. Yeah, you obviously had to. I remember you telling me on the phone, obviously the process of living in America was like, no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And sorry if we've already discussed this, but is there like a deeper reason? You said it's because you guys had different passports, but is that it? Is that literally it? Was America just like, you don't have the right passport, so therefore you can't? Or were they like, you could, but the process is like...
No, like there is 0 pathways for us to legally immigrate to the United States. We're married to each other. We're both Bahamian, so I can't marry a U.S. citizen and get status. Neither one of us are rocket scientists or nurses, the people that they want to give you visas and work things for being in the United States because they want your help with something. There's no way for us to legally move to the Bahamas. It's for us to legally move to the United States.
Yeah, to the United States.
And the Bahamas, we had already been having conversations over the course of several years about not staying in the Bahamas permanently. And so this entire experience was a catalyst, and at the time, not in a good way.
Yeah.
We couldn't face going back knowing that we had all of these problems prior to this extra bit of problem where we lost everything and the place looks like a war zone. So were we running away from the problems? Absolutely. Was that the only option in our minds? Absolutely.
Sometimes you got to. Sometimes you got to, especially in your situation. I feel like there's so many like reasons to not go back. Like the PTSD, for example, I feel like that could just trigger,
lots of triggers.
Triggers, yes.
The access to mental health in the Bahamas is very limited and very different from access to mental health professionals in the United States and in Canada. As an LGBTQ family in the Bahamas, it's a very different experience and not positive. So those were some of the reasons that we had already been considering not staying anyway.
Yeah, and this was just the cherry on top.
Yeah, it really was.
Unfortunately, the worst cherry on top, but it was the cherry on top. Okay, so y'all are house hunting. Y'all are doing all this stuff. Y'all are like, okay, we can move to Canada. So y'all end up moving. Do y'all end up
Yes.
like, were y'all like, okay, we're gonna buy a house? Or was it like, okay, we'll get an apartment and just see how this area is? Like, what was the process of that?
The process was trying to find stability as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
If for us, and for me in particular, I mean, we had a young child, and stability is like super important when you have little kids. For me personally, I didn't feel like I was going to be able to breathe until there was a roof that belonged to us, that we could just like shut out the world and be in our bubble, and then I could feel stable.
Yeah.
Which turned out to be not actually what would make me feel stable, but at the time I thought it would. So yeah, moving to Canada, we had an Airbnb for 6 weeks that we miraculously found an Airbnb that would let us have this many dogs.
Yeah.
So blessed in that regard. And then it's house hunting, right? So we had insurance on our home in the Bahamas. We were some of very few. Hurricane insurance is really expensive, and you're buying into a what if scenario. Turns out when you buy into a what if scenario and that what if happens, it pays you back.
Oh.
Right? So we were in a position to be able to leave the Bahamas, have the equity from our home, and be able to purchase a home in Canada. We
Wow.
were so lucky, so blessed, had so much gratitude, not just for the fact that we survived, right? 70 plus people in the Bahamas died in this storm. We easily could have been one of them. So many people lost their homes. There was a study done estimating 12,000 people were displaced because of this storm.
Yeah.
We were lucky enough to be able to leave, find another place, and get settled financially.
Yeah, and if we're being like totally honest here, like your situation, you have 5 dogs, a little kid, like the probability, is that the right word, of you guys surviving probably was
Yeah.
pretty low, if we're
Yeah.
being honest. And it's
Yeah.
amazing that
everybody was able to walk out of that,
every
swim out of that.
yes, everyone was able to swim out of it. Yes. It's crazy. Okay, so you guys end up getting a house.
Yes.
That's amazing. Are you guys still in that same house?
We are not. That ended up being a starter house, and over the course of several years here in Canada, trying to handle mental health, trying to re-find happiness, trying to figure out what future holds when you had future, like future was planned. This is what we're going to do. This is our forever house, and have that rug like ripped out from underneath you. Forcing your mind back into, what do I need to be happy? What does future look like? So we ended up selling our starter house, building a new house, and we're 5.5 years later. I can finally say that we're in that stable, happy place.
My goodness. It's crazy. Okay, so I keep thinking, like, your story is insane. Like, it is so crazy. It's crazy. And I am, like, honored that you're here talking to me. Like, seriously, it's amazing. Okay, so happy ending. Traumatic story, but happy ending.
Yes.
Okay, so I kind of want to dive into, I guess, our next topic, kind of. It flows in with all of this, obviously, but you talked about how something this traumatic can really affect a person, and how mental health is just like extremely important to you. So I want us to talk about your advocacy for mental health. But first, I want us to focus on how this traumatic experience has affected you mentally. You told me on the phone that you have PTSD from this experience, but you also came out stronger after going through this traumatic experience. So, my first question is, what steps did you take to slowly come out stronger?
Step one was getting into therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all of us, myself, my wife, our 6-year-old,
Oh.
everybody went to therapy.
Oh.
It was sort of one of the very first conversations post, okay, we're alive. Right. Our daughter needs therapy. She's 6 years old. She's been faced with what death looks like. Most of us don't get faced with that until we're actually dying at old age. Our 6-year-old now knows what it feels like to be faced with death. That's heavy.
Yeah.
That's a scar for life. That can mess you up for life if it's left, right? So we prioritized her mental health before our own, to my own detriment. But we got her into therapy, got her into, when you're 6 years old, you don't have the vocabulary to have talk therapy. Like, I can talk about how I'm feeling to a therapist and that helps.
Yeah.
When you're 6, you don't have the vocabulary. So we got her into something called play therapy, which I knew nothing about prior to this experience. Amazing therapist, would get down on the floor and play games with her and do coloring and do drawing and like come up with these this special superhero that survives storms and is a mermaid and can keep everyone safe and is strong, and like all of these things that you do to get into a kid's psyche and like help them feel stronger about their experience. She took to therapy like, a fish in water, pun intended. And so she recovered far faster than my wife and I.
Kids are so resilient.
Kids are so resilient. My kid is somehow like the strongest person I know. And yeah, so therapy was really good for her. It took my wife and I longer to get to therapy because we were super busy moving to another country. And then we moved to another country 6 months before the world imploded and COVID happened and there was a pandemic and
Oh my gosh,
all of these new things all at the same time.
Yeah.
So we prioritized day-to-day life and trying to get stable and trying to figure things out over our mental health. I hit rock bottom at one point and was a version of myself that I don't recognize, that my wife couldn't stand, like all of the things. A lot of anger, a lot of impatience, a lot of overwhelm, and I just can't deal, and I'm going to lose my mind. And so, yeah, eventually I did manage to get into therapy. My wife got into therapy, and I found an incredible therapist who very early on found out that I was an amateur writer. And when I say amateur writer, I mean someone who wrote short stories as a child and has written poetry most of my adult life. But she's like, "You like to write?" "Yeah, I like to write. I write love poems for my wife because I love her."
Oh.
"Okay, no, you're gonna write all this down." "Really? Why?" "Because that's gonna be your therapy."
Mm-hmm.
And to my wife had been in like the back of my head for years. "You need to write a book. You need to write a book. You're such a good writer. You need to write a book." I can't write a book. So therapy started with me writing out exactly what happened, minute by minute, hour by hour. And I would write a few pages and then I would read it to my therapist and I would read it again. I would read it again and I would read it again. And I would have snot rolling down my face and tears and massive migraines while I'm doing all of these things. But the desensitization of getting it out onto paper, technically a computer, and then revisiting it. And it was amazing. It was exactly what I needed from therapy.
Yeah, I've always heard writing, journaling every morning, like, just putting it somewhere else than in here, like you have to get it out, whether that's verbal, whether that's writing. If you're not a verbal person, if you don't want to really talk about it, writing. I've also heard that like taking videos of like every single day that you're feeling a certain way, just take a video of it and then you can go back and watch it, because like in a video you're able to visually see like your emotions, how you were feeling, like are you happy that day, are you sad, are you happy and sad, are you angry, and so yeah, therapy is amazing. Like they will tell you all different types of techniques and ways to cope that you would never think of, like play therapy for children. Like it makes sense, but it's like,
who knew that existed?
People are so amazing. Like they're so smart. I love that. Okay, so my next question was, how did this experience affect you and your family? But you kind of just said y'all, you hit a rock bottom. It was a lot.
I had some other PTSD symptoms. I never really had nightmares. My wife had lots and lots of nightmares. I found that there were triggers. So wind, the sound of wind was a really big one. I would be awake at night if we had, any kind of a windstorm. And I say storm really loosely because they're not actual storms in comparison. But if I could hear the wind and I couldn't breathe, and is the house going to be okay? And of course, the house is going to be blowing 25 mile an hour. It's not that windy. A couple of our dogs had PTSD with wind. Like they never bothered by the sound of wind before, but then after,
Oh,
they would be up in the middle of the night freaking out because it was windy. Um, a lot of overwhelm, a lot of, if this thing is happening at the same time as this thing is happening and I can't focus on both of those things at the same time, I'm losing my mind, having panic attacks. Oh, I have an email I need to answer and I can't find my keys. End of the world.
yeah. Yeah. I understand that. It's crazy how the brain works. It's crazy how, and when I say crazy, I'm not meaning this like in a bad way, but like it's really intriguing and interesting how the brain can cause people to have certain triggers due to like a traumatic experience that they have had. It's very interesting. And like you said, your dogs, like that was going to be a question that I was going to ask, but I forgot. I was thinking like, do your dogs are they like scared of the water now? Like, are they scared of like the wind? That was literally going to be my question.
Listen, the whole scared of the water thing was like the very first thing. Oh my gosh. Our daughter's going to be scared of water. She's going to be scared of water for the rest of her life. We can't have her to be scared of the water. We're island people. We're ocean people. We've been born into the ocean. We've been baptized into the ocean. This is us. We can't have her be frightened of the water. And we put her in a swimming pool 2 days after. She's like, "Oh yeah, this is awesome. I'm good. Okay, we're not scared of water. Good."
Kids.
Dogs either. Two of our dogs absolutely love to swim and still love to swim. So,
I love that your daughter is still a little fishy.
she is.
I love that.
She's still a little fishy.
Good. So how would you say this experience has changed your perspective on life?
It's definitely refocused what's important. It's definitely refocused what happiness is and how to find it and how to handle stress. There was a lot of stress, like a lot of stress. And so there were lots of different techniques that therapists will give you, breathing techniques and creative visualization, in addition to, things like writing therapy and all of those. And so lots of those techniques I will still use. If I wake up in the middle of the night and it's windy and I'm feeling bothered, I'll use, breathing techniques.
Yeah.
That helps. But yeah, the realization too that home isn't a place. And for a long time, I struggled with that home was the place that we lost and now we didn't have a home. And realizing that home is anywhere my wife and I and our daughter and our dogs are together, that's home.
Yeah, you can make a home anywhere as long as y'all are together. Yeah, I bet
Yes.
that was difficult to wrap your mind around because like you said, that was your home. You were planning your life around it. You're planning your future. Like that was the home that you were going to become old in, like have you been back since?
We have been back. Because of COVID, we were not able to go back for a good year and a half, which may have been a good thing, may have been a bad thing. It's really hard to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when we were able to go back, it was difficult. What was left of our home from the outside would have looked like it was fine. Structural engineers said that foundation was cracked, walls were cracked, it was no longer structurally sound, even though it looked fine. So we had to make the terrible, difficult decision of tearing down what was left. That was really traumatic. And so when we were able to finally go back, the house wasn't even there. It was just the place.
My goodness.
Our daughter chose not to. We asked her. The answer was immediately no. Fine.
Yeah.
You don't ever need to go back there. That's fine.
Yeah.
And she hasn't. My wife and I went back. We had a good long cry for what was lost. We've been back to the Bahamas many times since then. We have relatives that still live there. We still love the ocean and love the beach, and the Bahamas will always be home. That part of the Bahamas that was impacted by Hurricane Dorian is still a mess. It's been 5.5 years. They're still trying to repair things. The airport is still makeshift. There's still buildings that were heavily damaged that haven't been torn down, and so they're just dots of broken places all over. So it's still very challenging.
Yeah, I bet. Okay, so you kind of talked about your strategies that you use whenever, the triggers happen. But can you tell me, like, whenever you are able to, what is the word? I don't want to say identify, but you're able to realize, like, okay, that just really triggered me. I need to calm myself down or whatever it is. What technique works the best for you in certain situations where you're feeling panicky, you're feeling like, oh shit, I'm about to have a panic attack, or whatever it is?
Mm-hmm. For a long time, it was moving.
Okay.
Like I literally couldn't sit still. As soon as I sat still, my brain would start with this happened and that happened, and I feel this and I feel terrible. And once I sat still, then I couldn't get back up. Depression would set in. So for a long time, it was movement. Like I gardened like mad. Like as soon as I felt anxious, outside in the garden, just go pull some weeds, dig a hole, plant a tree, garden. Because when I was doing that, I could turn it all off.
Yeah.
Right. And then I would come back in and I would be tired, but I would be calm. And then I could face those things. So for a long time, it was movement. More recently, it's been the breathing techniques. It's been the creative visualization. It's taking joy from things that used to bring me joy. We are travelers. We adore traveling. We travel a lot. And so planning trips is like my number one. Oh, I feel like crap. Let me plan a trip. I may never actually go on that trip, but I'm going to plan it anyway.
That's so funny. That's literally me. I'm always telling my partner, I'm like, I want to go here. I want to go here. I want to go here. Like, I'm going to plan it. And
there's a list. There's always a list.
There's always a list. And I love planning trips. I love it. And my partner's like, Kinley, like, we have jobs, but like we can't take 3 trips a month. Like, you need to chill out. And I'm like, I mean, we could. And she's like, yeah, but it's not smart. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. So I have to bring myself down. But
yeah,
I'm a little traveler too, so I get it. Okay, so what lessons? These are all deep questions, so I apologize. It's probably gonna get your brain. What lessons would you say you've learned about yourself through this experience?
I'm stronger than I thought I was.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It by a lot. In the thick of it, I did not feel strong at all. I felt very weak and incapable, and guilty and depressed and all of the things, and hopeless. There was lots of hopeless. It's never going to get any better than this. We had this terrible thing happen to us. It was completely out of our control. And I just had to live with it for the rest of my life, and I'm never going to feel any better than I do right now. And there was years of that. But even as that was happening, I was forcing myself to focus on the thing that needed to get done.
Mm-hmm.
So part of our immigration process of moving to Canada, I had to go back to school. So I attended community college, all of which was done online because COVID, and you can't actually go into, a classroom and meet people.
Yeah.
Which was part of the plan for enrolling in college, was to meet people in the place that I had moved to. It didn't work out that way. And so for like a year and a half, the goal was just get the schoolwork done, get the degree done.
Mm-hmm.
And during that process, the journal pages that I had been writing for therapy started to pile up. And it's like, oh, I have all of these pages in this. Like, I have our whole story written down. Oh, wait. I have, this is a book. This could be a book. Who would want to read my journal pages? but I can edit and I can add to, and that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do with this. That's what I'm doing with all of this pain and all of this hopelessness and all of this. It's never going to get any better. And I'm going to put this huge goal out in front of me, so far in the distance that I can barely see the dot. And that's what I'm going to work towards. And having that goal, in part, was what lifted me up out of that hopelessness, that it's never going to get any better.
I was just about to say, I feel like writing your book was probably also an outlet for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the therapy started out as getting it out of me and onto a page. And then when the dream manifested into, well, I've always wanted to write a book, but never thought I could. Wait, I've written half a book already.
Yeah.
Oh, that means I can do it. I've already written half of it. It just needs to edit and add, make it, something that someone would want to read. And yeah, so then it became ambitious. I've never been ambitious in my life. But prior to almost dying, ambition? No. 9-to-5 job works just fine for me. Don't need to be anything better than that. And then suddenly it was, I'm going to do this. I'm going to write a book. It's going to be a book that's amazing, and people are going to want to read it, and I'm going to sell it and market it. And it's just this, suddenly I had positivity that I never had. Like, I was always considered myself a realist, so not positive, not negative, just this is reality.
Yeah.
And then following the storm, and in the hopelessness and the depression and the PTSD, it was very negative, very low. And this was the shift from the negative into the positive. I'm positive I can do this. I'm positive it will be good. I'm positive it will sell. I'm positive of all these things. And that really changed my perspective.
It's crazy how something so traumatic can help you not turn into someone better, because I'm not saying like you were a bad person or anything, but like turn you into someone that like you can't really recognize, like being ambitious or like
didn't exist before.
Yeah, realizing that you can do things that like before this hurricane you never thought you could do, like not read a book, write a book, things like that. It's crazy. It's crazy how those things work. Okay, so you are a big advocate for the mental health and mentioned how you want to make sure that people know that even though they go through something hard, they can always get through it. So I know we've been talking about this, and this might be kind of like a repeated question somewhat, but can you elaborate more on that? Like, what do you mean by that?
At my lowest, I didn't think that it would ever get better. At my lowest, everything was hopeless. I survived, and for some people that should have been enough. I survived. That's the thing, right? I survived. And it was very difficult to focus on that.
Yeah.
And I survived this storm. My family and I survived this storm. So many people out there are surviving a storm. It's not a Category 5 hurricane. There are very few people that have been through a Category 5 hurricane. But everybody's got their own storm, right? So you've had a terrible car accident and you're having to recover from that. You've had a cancer diagnosis and you're having to fight through that. A domestic violence situation, poverty, losing your job, living in your car, don't know how you're going to feed your kids. Everyone's got something. Some of them are little T traumas, some of them are big T traumas. Doesn't matter. It's still a trauma for you. And in the thick of it, it feels like hopelessness. It's never going to get any better. There's nothing I can do. My life is going to be like this for the rest of my life. Everybody has within them the strength and the resilience to get out the other side. I want people to hear my story. I want people to hear our story of survival and our mental health recovery in the aftermath and think, well, yeah, if they can survive that, I can survive this. And that's really what's important to me at this point, is to have people read the book, to have people sit back and think, wow, that's a crazy story. Oh my God, how did you guys survive? This is how we survived. I talk about it a lot in my book. I talk about the low points and the feeling of hopelessness. And here I am, 5.5 years later, having this conversation with you, having this conversation with your viewers. So many of the people that are listening are suffering through something. you have the strength to get through it.
Period. No, and it's so true, because when people are in the thick of it, it's like they're tunnel visioned. They can't think about anything else. They're just tunnel visioned on like the problem, the traumatic experience, whatever it is. And it is hard to be able to be like, okay, let me open my horizon a little bit and let me realize that things always do get better, like they always do, however that looks like. And it's hard to see the light when it's so dark, but I feel like, people like you that have gone through such a crazy experience, you almost died. I feel like people hearing your story, hopefully it'll help them realize like, okay, they went through that. I'm good. Like I can do this. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And we're not minimizing anyone's traumas at all. It's just like what you said, everyone has their own storms. But yeah, anyways, I can talk about this forever, so I'm not gonna rant. So I'm gonna stop myself right there. Okay, so I guess this kind of flows into the question I just asked you as well, but advice that you would give someone who went through something super traumatic and feels stuck. The advice could be like mechanisms that have worked for you, or just like advice in general, just wherever your brain goes.
My advice is therapy.
Yeah.
My advice is always going to be therapy. Go to therapy. Therapy is not one size fits all. What worked for me is not going to necessarily work for you. Or it's working for you for a while and then it stops working for you. If you go to see a therapist and it doesn't feel like the right fit, probably because it isn't.
Yeah. And that's
it's not
okay.
The right fit. It's not the right therapist for you. Go find a different one. If talk therapy isn't working for you, there are other therapies. It's not just I have to pour my heart and soul out to a complete stranger. There are other therapies. I did a therapy called EMDR, which is specifically for traumatic experiences. Eye movement desensitization response, which is revisiting the traumatic experience while either doing bilateral visual or bilateral touch sensations. And it triggers the brain, the back and forth movement triggers the brain to process your traumatic experience and your emotions in a different way. I found that super helpful. Really difficult, but super helpful.
Is that kind of similar to exposure therapy?
Yeah, so same idea, desensitization, revisiting.
Okay.
But the studies show that the movement back and forth in the left, right of the brain opens up your emotional center and helps you get at some of that stuff that you kind of like push back there. I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
So there's lots of different kind of therapy. As you know, we spoke about play therapy for our daughter, art therapy. There's so many different ways of tackling what you're doing. So if you don't like what you're working with, go find someone else. The other thing is that give it time. You're not going to go to therapy 3, 4, 5 times and be fixed. Some people have to go to therapy for the rest of their lives. Some people can go for a year and be okay for 6 months, and then I need to go back to therapy again. For me, I did about a year and a half regularly. I was off for 6-8 months, decided I need something different, came back, did EMDR for several months, took a break, went back to talk therapy for a little bit. And so, especially with trauma specifically, especially with big T traumas, it's probably going to be an ongoing thing. And being able to recognize that your level of comfort and your ability to handle things is going to shift over time, and the different things that happen in your lives are going to kind of trigger you in ways you didn't expect or know would happen. And so being self-aware enough to say, yep, time to go back to therapy.
And like you said, there's different therapies. There's horse therapy. You can go and hang out and love on horses. And there's like animal therapy. Like there's so many types of therapies that people can look into. And if they're like, I don't want like the basic therapy where I'm just like talking, it's like what you said, there's so many that you can
do your research, find somebody else that is like you, that this is what they recommend. Go try that.
Yeah, exactly. And like me, for example, like I've gone to therapy because I'm a big advocate for obviously mental health in general, but therapy. And I've had to go through a couple of therapists, and it can be frustrating because it's like, oh, I just want to find the right one. But
Mm-hmm.
the whole therapy process, you have to be very patient.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be
Yeah.
very patient. And sometimes there's people that find their therapist immediately, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
amazing. I love that for you. But
Yeah.
that's usually not the case. Usually
That's true.
you gotta go through a couple of therapists to find the right one, and that's fine. Time, I love how you said time. Like, you're not going to get better within a month or
Yep.
even 6 months. Like, you may need, I mean, the time frame is different for everyone, but
Mm-hmm.
patience. It's
Yeah.
like you just have to be patient. And sometimes whenever you think you're getting better, that's when people stop. And it's
Yeah.
like, I hear you. It makes sense. Like, I get it, but that's when you just got to keep going.
Yeah.
You know?
I like to use analogy. If you fell and you broke your leg, you would not ignore it. You would go to a doctor. You would do what the doctor told you to get better. You would not expect to be going skiing 2 days after breaking your leg. You would expect time for it to heal.
Mm.
After you got your cast off, you would expect to go to physical therapy to regain what you had before. You would not expect to have the same strength in your leg that you did before all of this experience, right? And if you had a particularly bad break, you might expect to feel that when you do certain activities for the rest of your life. You may expect to go back to physical therapy a couple of more times too. There's nothing different about mental health. It's exactly the same as physical health. If you went to the doctor and the doctor said, okay, I think you're done with physical therapy, and you think, no, actually I'm not. I need some more. You speak up, or you go find another doctor and you get more help for the pain in your leg. No different. If you've got pain, if you've got trauma, if you've got depression and you need help, go find the doctor that's going to help you.
I love that analogy. That's probably going to be one of my clips that I put on my Instagram. That was good. Okay, so love that. We've talked a lot about mental health. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we dive into the climate change topic?
I think that just to reiterate, there is a point where it gets better.
Mhm.
It may be years. I'm 5.5 years outside of this process, and even having this conversation, my face is bright red whenever I have this conversation, and I want to help people. I struggle with it, struggle with talking about it. I struggle with public speaking. So it doesn't go away. It's a part of you.
Mm-hmm.
And recognizing that it's a part of you and it's going to affect how you go through life is super important too.
And I think what you just said, like being able to recognize and be able to be okay with the fact that it's a part of you and the
Yeah.
triggers will probably always come up. Being able to recognize that and be okay with that probably will make the process much easier. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I love that. Okay. This is our last topic. We're gonna talk about. We're totally changing the topics.
We're like shifting.
Yeah, shifting. This is totally different. So as we all know, climate change is real. Okay, some people don't think so, but it's real. And weather disasters are getting worse and worse each year. You talked to me about how y'all's storm survival is part of a bigger global crisis. So can you elaborate more on that?
Hurricanes have always been a part of my life, as I mentioned. Grandparents, great grandparents, everyone's had hurricanes. Through the generations, there's been the big one. My grandparents had their big one. My parents' big one was called Hurricane Betsy. Category 3 hurricane, direct hit in the Bahamas, hundreds of thousands of dollars of damage. That was in the 60s. That was their big one. My first hurricane I can remember, I was 18. Now, I'm sure there were storms before that, but they were so minor that I have no memory of them. At 18, we had a major storm. It was 1999. I'm going to date myself now. We had a bad storm. And then 2 years later, we had 2 bad storms. And then a year after that, we had another bad storm. And so over the course of my adult life, the frequency has increased dramatically. Not only has the frequency increased, but the intensity of these storms has been increasing. So in 2016, we had Hurricane Matthew, direct hit on our island 3 years before Dorian. We lost electricity for 3 weeks.
Oh my God.
No electricity for 3 weeks. And then we, just three years later, barely started to clean up, barely started to fix things. Here's Hurricane Dorian, flattened everything. 5.5 years later, they're still working on it. There's another one coming. Might not be, formed yet. Might not be this year. Might be next year. Might be 10 years. It's really hard to say, but it's coming. It's not if, it's when, which is one of the reasons we've chosen to leave. I'm not willing to put myself and my family in the path of another one of these storms.
Yeah.
But it's going to happen. And so much of the world, we build at the edge of the ocean. The ocean is about romance, and it's about connection to the planet, and for those of us that grew up on islands, it's a part of our identity, right? And so much of the world, so much of the United States, the Bahamas, obviously, we're built right on the edge of the ocean. That's going to have an impact as we see more of these storms, as ocean levels are rising. There are some estimates that say that the Bahamas is going to be underwater in 30, 50 years. Like, the Bahamas won't exist. There are 400,000 people that live in my country. Where are they going to go?
It's crazy. So are you wanting to focus, and I don't know what the word is. I guess, are you wanting to focus on the topic climate change because you are wanting people to recognize that it's getting bad? Like, what is the reason behind wanting to talk about climate change?
I want to talk about climate change because there are lots of people that haven't had a direct impact yet.
Mm-hmm.
So even though, we have all of these terrible storms, I mean, gosh, Western North Carolina now know what it looks like to have a hurricane. Western North Carolina, right?
Mm-hmm.
They got decimated because of this hurricane. It wasn't a hurricane by the time it got to them, but that's where it started, right? But there are so many people that have never had an impact from one of these storms, despite living on the ocean. And so the understanding of how bad it can be, how much of an impact it can have, is relatively small. You watch the news, right? And you feel for the people, and maybe you send a donation, and then the next news story comes and it hasn't impacted me, I'm fine, right? Downtown Miami, for instance, massive city, skyscrapers sitting on the beach, like literally on the beach. They haven't had a direct impact from one of these storms. It's coming, right? And so it's really important for people to understand that it's not if, it's when. It's going to happen to you, or it's going to happen to an immediate family member. And we may very well be past the point of stopping it. Like, scientists will tell you, this is happening. At this point, we're at mitigation, right? How can we handle what's going to happen? Well, we probably shouldn't be putting skyscrapers on the beach.
That's a start.
Just saying. We should be investing in elevating in areas that are flood prone. Places in the Keys, in the Florida Keys, have already started building their homes a story up. Like, everyone's building on stilts because this is happening.
Key West is like right there by the Bahamas, right?
Yeah. So not far off. A lot of the same weather. A lot of the same issue with height. Key West is flat, right? As soon as you get a couple of feet of water, it's flooded.
Yeah.
But more to my point, my family and I were displaced because of climate change, because of terrible weather. Is the Bahamas still livable? Yes. Hundreds of thousands of people live there. It is still livable, but it's slowly going to be not livable. In part because we're a tiny country. We don't have the resources to rebuild. We don't have the resources for mitigation and building giant walls around our islands to keep the water out, right? And so a lot of that mitigation and funding for that mitigation comes from other countries like the United States. But back to that catastrophe scenario where the ocean rises high enough that there is no more islands, It's not just the Bahamas, South Pacific, places in the Mediterranean. The Mediterranean does have more mountainous areas. There are going to be more and more people displaced, not because of war, not because of famine. I mean, lots of those people, but they're going to be environmental migrants. That's us. It's a relatively new phrase, so new that there are no immigration pathways for us. We immigrated to Canada. We didn't immigrate to Canada as environmental migrants, as refugees. We did the long way. We did the economic way. I went to school. We got work permits. Like, we did the whole thing. We were able to do it. We had the stamina to do it. We were financially stable enough to be able to do it. Lots of people in the Bahamas would choose to, but aren't able to.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that governments that are interested in participating in immigration, which some governments are not, specifically the governments that are interested in welcoming immigrants to their country, this is something that's happening, right? And it's being aware of that and putting in place those laws ahead of time. Don't wait until there's 100,000 people that need to be, rehomed. That needs to be done now.
Yeah, I feel like the world focuses on war or like just immigrants wanting to come over for whatever reason, They don't focus on the environmental migrants. Yeah. Because whenever you were talking to me about that on the phone, I was like even me, like I will admit, I'm like, oh wow, like I didn't ever think of that. Like that's because it's all like everything that's on the news, it's like, okay, yeah, there's a hurricane that's happening, but then it's like, but then there's this war that's happening here, and then the president's doing this, or like, you know what I mean? And it's like they don't give enough focus to the environmental disasters that are happening. And that is just insane to me that there's not steps for environmental migrants in a lot of places. Like, like I think that's crazy.
And to your point, right? It's not something that you've had a reason to think about. I didn't have a reason to think about it before this. I live in the Bahamas. I live in the islands. That's life, right? And this horrible catastrophe happened. We almost drowned. There's a massive Category 5 hurricane right after a massive Category 4 hurricane. What's an environmental migrant? Oh, wait, that's me. And so I have a small soapbox to stand on at this point, but it's important that more people like me are able to speak to more people like you and to your audience who would have no reason to ever think about what an environmental migrant is and open that conversation.
100%. And that's why I am honored that you're here, because this is obviously very different than the type of, content that is on my podcast, but I love it. And I'm hoping that it gets out to the right people and they're able to educate themselves more on it, because just talking to you right now, like I feel so much more educated about it. Obviously there's so much more to learn and there's more research and all that stuff, but it's like there's so many things that have come to life that I was like, I never thought about that. And I know that sounds ignorant, but it's like, wow, I've never thought of that,
No, but if you never had that experience and you haven't known someone who has had that experience, then you don't know.
Yeah.
Until you do.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like I'm such a aware human, and I try to be very aware of like everything that's going on in this world as much as I can, because there's a lot going on in this world. Yeah.
You can't be an expert at everything.
Yeah, exactly. And so this was just something that like, just wasn't there. I just didn't ever think about it. So you being here is awesome. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Is there anything else you would like to talk about?
So we did talk in depth about my story, our survival, what happened in the aftermath. That is not the whole story. That is a very small amount of the story. Anyone that is interested in actually hearing the whole story, word for word, my book is called The Ocean in Our Blood. It is available online on my website, www.tarapyfrom.com. I am on socials. I'm on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. And the book will be available through Amazon in July. So if anyone is interested in hearing the full story, hearing more about it, reaching out to me, that's the best way to do it.
Yes, you guys definitely Check it out. I like what you just said. Your story is just it's just hitting the surface. Is that the correct term? It's right on the
Yes.
surface. And so your
Yes.
book is going to dive even more into it. So
Hmm.
you guys should definitely buy it. So whenever it comes out on Amazon, they just look up The Ocean in Our Blood. Did I say that correct?
That's it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, The Ocean in Our Blood.
Yes.
Okay, period, guys. You need to show love. She's also, of course, a part of the community, so we got to show love even more. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening. Tara, thank you. Like you said, you get red when you talk about this
Hmm.
stuff. It's scary. It brings you back. So
Hmm.
I thank you for coming on, being vulnerable with us, and feeling like this is a safe space. And hopefully, you felt like
Yes.
it was.
I absolutely did. I've been so happy to have this chat with you and to share this with all of your listeners. And I hope that someone out there who is going through their own trauma feels like, they have a little lift, that they kind of feel like maybe they can be strong. And I hope that anyone that has never heard about the Bahamas or the terrible hurricanes or environmental migrants feel like they've learned something.
And they trust me, if they listen, they will feel all of those things. Okay, well, thank you so much again. And for my listeners, I post every Wednesday. I have some really cool people coming on. There's some cool stuff in the works, so definitely stay tuned. And do you want to drop your socials one more time?
Yeah, so the website is www.tarapyfrom, TARAPYFROM.com. And I'm on Instagram, Tara Pyfrom, Facebook, Tara Pyfrom Writer, so it's really easy to find.
Okay, period. Go show her love, guys, and I will talk to y'all soon. All right, bye.